I love that environment. I like change. I like to challenge my team,
right?
You know, and I like to keep it different than just the same. I told you my term is called part drunk.
Yeah.
You know, where you just see the same part every day, and you're just like, I just want to see something else. Just put a hole in it or something.
Yeah.
This episode of the Fabricator Podcast is brought to you by Nuts, Bolts, and Thingamajigs. Tee off for the trades and support the next generation of manufacturing. Join us on Monday, May 22nd at Firethorn Country Club in Charlotte, North Carolina for NBT's Golf for Manufacturing South. All proceeds will go towards supporting summer manufacturing camps and scholarships. Reserve your spot today by visiting nutsandboltsfoundation.org.
Hello, welcome to the Fabricator Podcast. I'm Dan Davis with The Fabricator. This is my colleague. I almost called you Rich Burnett. I don't know where that name came from. Lincoln Bruner.
You can call me Rich. I'd like to be Rich.
Do you know a Rich Burnett?
No.
Or Burnett?
No.
Oh, you want to hear? So I used to have a colleague at a former employer named Naquana Como. Brilliant woman. Works for Deloitte now. She walked in the room and my brain saw Naquana, and the name that registered next to it was Santana Rodriguez.
Where in the world is?
Yeah.
Like what? And I told her that in full confession in front of everybody, and they couldn't stop laughing. Like, where in the world did you get Santana Rodriguez?
I don't know.
Rich Burnett.
Rich Burnett. I'll be Rich Burnett.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Lincoln,
that's actually a pretty good name.
It's a great name. It's like one of those names you'd hear on NPR.
Right.
So today's episode with Jordan Yost. Jordan Yost. Maybe I should just avoid people's names. Go around. Jordan Yost of Precision Tube in Las Vegas.
Yes.
We chatted with him while we were out in Vegas for the FMA annual meeting.
Great conversation.
Yeah. And he's really got something good going out there. But kind of reflecting on Las Vegas, you'd mentioned, Lincoln, that your family actually has some long-term ties to the city.
Long-term ties. My oldest aunt made her way there with her husband in the mid-'60s, early 60s, mid-'60s, somewhere in there. And then one after another, all these kids from a dairy farm in South Dakota migrated to Vegas. And it was sort of their land of opportunity.
This is like Rat Pack years.
This is Rat Pack years.
Yeah.
And then later on in the 80s and the 90s, my folks moved there. I think the first time they moved there was in the early 90s. And they still live in the area. And it's been great for my relatives because they found great jobs. They kept them. The one interesting bit of Bruner trivia is that...
I mean, Rich Burnett.
Oh, I'm sorry. Pardon me. Yeah. I didn't know my own name there for a second. Okay. A little interesting piece of Burnett trivia is that years ago, if you remember the old Vegas, remember the old series Vegas?
Correct. Dan Tana.
With Bob
Urich.
Robert Urich. So if you watch the
young people are shaking their head violently.
What are you talking about? So let Rich Burnett educate you. So if you look at the intro, you see the old Vegas world.
Correct.
Bob Stupak bought out my aunt and uncle's laundromat to construct his parking lot, I think, for Vegas World, and made them very wealthy at a very young age.
Wow.
And so the land of opportunity was Vegas.
There's no shortage of redevelopment in Vegas.
Oh my gosh, all the time. You just watch the Ocean's movies, right? They're tearing stuff down and building it.
So also joined today by Gareth Slager, our digital editor, and Brandon Geyer, who helps us on the technical side. Favorite parts, unfavorite parts of Vegas.
And they're like renaming people as we go. So
Actually, I got two names.
I'm not a Vegas guy, so leaving Vegas is my favorite part of Vegas.
Yeah. Well, there's not a lot to do there in town if you're not throwing your money away.
Right. I'd rather go to like Red Canyon.
Yeah, Red Rock.
Yeah.
Well, I
Red
think
Rock
that's
Canyon.
underrated
Yeah.
part of visiting is like you don't have to be in Vegas the entire time. It's kind of convenient some other stuff.
No.
I mean, if you're a tourist and don't do Hoover Dam, to me that makes me laugh. Like Hoover Dam.
Yeah. It just.
It was much more interesting than I anticipated.
Yeah.
Well,
Especially when there's actual water behind it.
Fingers
crossed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you look at one of the engineering marvels of the
Right,
world.
right.
I mean, Hoover Dam.
Yeah, no, it was cool.
And they built it way before modern, design software and the whole
Yeah.
deal. I mean, the amount of concrete that went
Yeah.
into that, and the amount of jobs it provided, and not one death during the construction of that. Not even one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure. Sure.
There's some skepticism.
We don't know that there aren't people still in there,
Right.
but they weren't. They didn't become deceased as a result of the construction of the dam.
He was alive before he hit the ground.
Right.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, Vegas is something. The thing that I can't wrap my head around is, like, it is designed to take your money.
Oh,
And like the point you get off that airplane and
you start
there's-
hearing the.
Yeah, I am way too cheap.
Yeah.
To
Same.
like I don't feel comfortable like walking through a casino makes me nervous.
It should.
Like I'm not smart enough to know where to let's go try blackjack. Do you have a system? What? I gotta know a system? Well, yeah, you better know what you're doing or you're gonna piss people off. What?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like I just can't be stupid and lose my money. I have to like actually think I know something to lose my money.
That place is built for pigeons.
Yeah.
They want you to be completely naive and just walk in with cash
Yeah.
in the palm of your hand, waiting to be.
And I realize that you can learn a lot of this online, but I'm more of an in-person learner.
Yeah.
And they want you to be. They want you to be sort of a tactile. Oh, I lost another $20.
I'm actually going to a Pai Gow Academy this weekend. Is that even what it's called?
I don't know.
Go.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, and I have no idea how to play. But
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
What was James Bond's game? Baccarat?
Oh,
that
yeah.
Russian roulette.
that too. So Rich Burnett's game
Yeah?
is video poker.
Really?
Because it's fun, and once I don't feel any compulsion to spend more than.
So you don't want to sit around with other people though?
No.
Really? I kind of understand that.
Because
All those people bring a weird vibe to a table.
And I don't want to be taken by somebody who really knows what they're doing, because I
Yeah.
definitely don't.
yeah.
Well, Brandon's a high stakes gambler in Vegas.
I wouldn't say high stakes, but I
Mid
dabble.
stakes?
Low stakes.
Yeah.
You're
Reasonable
okay sitting at a
stakes.
table.
Yeah.
I'll go in with like $200. And,
Okay, so this is I'm start asking questions based off what I see
Yeah.
on TV. Do you wear sunglasses when you play?
No,
No.
That's
because
the
you're playing
question.
against
Yeah.
the dealer, so you're not.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
The games I play, at least.
okay.
So you're playing blackjack? You playing what? Do you
I'm playing like I played Ultimate Texas Hold'em just last night, actually.
Okay.
Oh,
And
do you wear your earbuds when you play?
no, I don't think they allow that.
Oh,
No.
do you wear a backwards baseball cap when you play?
Sometimes.
A hoodie with the hood up.
No, and like so
It's
for
slouched.
for real, like be honest. Do you have a good poker face?
No. Very much no. All my emotions
that's
are
why
on
you're
my
sitting-
face, and you can tell immediately.
Do you get any type of? Are you like a frequent player somewhere and like have like a card?
I mean, I have a card because my buddies like the casinos a lot, so we
But
go
do you get
occasionally.
anything kicked back to you, like a room
Not
every
really.
now and then?
I'm not that much of a high roller.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, one of our colleagues here gets free trips.
Oh,
Naming names.
Oh, I do know that person.
Yes, I don't know if I want to
Yes.
say names.
Oh, you don't have to
but,
say it.
But she
It rhymes with
Oh, she.
Ginnifer.
She got
Of course, with me, you don't know what name that is.
I know.
you got
Her
a,
actual name is
It
Yennefer.
rhymes with Rich Burnett.
doesn't every good name. Rich?
Yeah.
But we have a really good colleague now in Vegas. Because Jordan Yost. I want you to remember how to pronounce that.
Yes, not
Yeah.
Jordan.
He showed us around his plant, and speaking of cool destination, now he has sort of like an unexpected niche, because you don't go to Vegas expecting to find
Right.
a high-tech metal fabricator, but you walk in, and that was the game from the beginning for him. Was we want really high-tech equipment, we want to show people what we can do with this, and so they incorporated social media as their chief marketing officer
Right.
right away.
Yeah, don't steal the thunder now.
No,
You're
but
giving
they-
away too much now.
I
You're
know.
not having a good poker face right now.
I know, I'm sorry, but they had. I mean, it was interesting talking with him, because what he did was kind of phrase it in a way that said, "Look, this is how we wanted to do business from the get-go, doing all these these things." with the machinery. But he just a very down to earth guy. It was really fun talking with him.
Well, let's jump right into it. Stay tuned and learn more from Jordan Yost, and actually check out his website as well, because they've had some new equipment installations, and he's pretty excited about it. So
Yeah.
thanks. See ya.
This episode of the Fabricator Podcast is brought to you by FMA Communications. Join us for the Stamping in an EV World Conference on June 13th in Novi, Michigan. This one-day conference will guide stampers, fabricators, and OEMs through the shift to electric vehicles. Business leaders from top automakers will share insights on the challenges and opportunities presented by this exciting new era. Sign up today at fmamfg.org. And now, back to the episode.
Hello, welcome to the Fabricator Podcast. I'm Dan Davis from the Fabricator, joined by Lincoln Bruner from the Fabricator and Tube and Pipe Journal.
Good morning.
Yeah, and our guest today, Jordan Yost of Precision Tube Laser.
Hello.
He's been an active participant with visiting fabricators this week, as we're recording this at the FMA annual meeting in Las Vegas. And actually, Lincoln had a chance to visit the shop yesterday. And
Phenomenal experience.
yeah, I'll let you kind of take over the first questions.
Thank you, Dan. It's a real pleasure to see you again, Jordan. I'm wanting to ask you multiple things, but one of the things that we talked about yesterday, your experience in another business, a completely different business, but one that taught you a great deal about work ethic and about hustling to meet customer. I was wondering if you can tell me a little bit about what you were doing before you decided to invest in PTL, and a little bit more about the mindset you took away from that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we have a very interesting story how we got into PTL. We don't come from a long line of fabricators or welders or metal shops. That's not in our background at all. I was in the rental car business for 10 years. I owned 3 rental car companies on the Strip. And a lot of what I had to do was get up, hustle, grind, take advantage of the opportunities that present themselves, because every day it was different. And it really, more or less, I didn't even know it was happening, but it was really keying me into how I wanted to run this business. And so when I made that transition into PTL, it was a very easy transition for me to get up, grind, learn, educate, watch, experience what's going on, figure out what the patterns are, all the things that allowed us to really get off the ground and get going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, it's an interesting, to go from car rental to metal fabrication or metal creation, on-demand job shop is a big jump.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, walking around your plant yesterday, I just got the distinct impression that everybody knew what they were doing. And I'm not kidding. And I hope that doesn't sound patronizing, but there was this very noticeable air of competence in your people running the machines, walking around, and there wasn't a whole lot of waiting around. People were purposeful with how they were using your time, and I know that's on purpose. And I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit more about, just basically how you use really good time management to meet your customers' demands.
Yeah, with our group, everybody that works for us from top to bottom had no experience in the metal industry before they started with us.
Wow.
Everything has been taught based on our experience. And it's really how I prefer it. I get asked all the time, why don't you hire somebody with experience? And there's a lot of ego, there's a lot of, well, this is how I do it.
Right.
And it's not the same. Whether you go from shop to shop, it's not the same work, dynamic. It's not the same setup that you have, and so you can't really come in with that type of mentality. Mm-hmm. And I like being able to encourage people that you can learn a new skill. You saw yesterday a majority of my labor force is very young. I've got all the way down to, I've got 2 18-year-olds that are running $1 million pieces of equipment. And I'm a very big believer in hiring young, hardworking, good
Mm-hmm.
attitude having young people to come in and learn a skill, learn a trade, and not be afraid to step up and say, hey, I can do this. Obviously it takes a lot of encouragement. You got to coddle a lot of people through this process because it's extremely intimidating. I don't know if you noticed when you walked in, my entire sales force is all female. My front line is completely female from top to bottom.
I didn't see that.
And that's something that's very important to us, you know, to show the industry that women can also learn this. It doesn't matter who you are. If you have the willingness to learn and a good attitude and a good approach and you're open and you're not afraid, we can teach you anything, you know, and that's what makes my business a lot of fun, is that there's no cap. You know, if you were in sales and you want to go to programming, we'll teach you programming. If you want to go from programming and run a machine, let's go run a machine. You know, it's that ambition and drive and that want and that desire to just keep pushing and getting better, you know, and there's very, very few companies that offer that opportunity. And that was something that was really important for me when I built this business. Was I wanted a business that I always wanted to work for, you know, with the way that it operates with its people, how it handles its customers, you know, and all the way down to the equipment that we own.
Yeah.
So those are core values for me that exist far beyond our success.
Can you provide an overview just for the audience of your capabilities and your business model and maybe how that's changed when you first opened?
Right now, we are a on-demand, you know, or just-in-time job shop. We use high-end equipment. We've aligned ourselves with Trump equipment. That's mainly what we have in our shop. You know, and we created a environment that allows people to contact us and get parts made very easily. Just as much as cutting material is our business, educating people is our business, whether they have the ability to draw, whether they have the ability to complete a design, you know, in their head. I got to get it out of your head before I can create it physically. And we've created this dynamic that allows people to access us, high dollar equipment, really, really fast turnaround times, you know, matching speed with quality, consistency, the guarantee that you're going to get your parts. And where this all really stemmed from for me was when I sold my rental car companies, I went to work for a local job shop here. And a majority of what they made at the time was trade show booths, you know, and little one-off projects. But the trade show booth side of it was extremely busy. And I watched and observed and participated with 6 other guys manually just killing themselves every day to make a living. And they didn't really have the ability to buy big equipment. You know, they didn't have the ability to buy lasers and press brakes. And, you know, even when they could, I don't know that it was the right dynamic for their business.
They're just throwing more muscle at it.
Just keep going, keep pushing. And so we know over time that just really wears on companies. You know, your turnover rate on guys, your quality of craftsmanship starts to go down. And that's when it dawned on me that there's thousands of shops in this same situation. And what if a company came in and offered a solution in a manner that actually helps grow small businesses and says, listen, you don't have to make that investment. I'll do it. I'll take the risk, but I'm building this business to help you. And if we can help each other be successful, then we can grow to the point where maybe you can afford your own equipment, if that's the direction you want to go. And so that's kind of where this all stemmed from Precision. So when we started, you know, we had no customers. We started with a single tube laser, which at the time was the least known service and the least used service in the industry.
Right.
So our back was completely against the wall.
But it was a niche that you purposefully exploited.
Correct. We'll get into that. But
yeah,
you know, we had to find a way to get people's attention. So we knew up front we were going to grow this business through social media, which sounds crazy, especially with a multi-million-dollar investment to open your doors. No customers and nobody really knows about it. And that's when we started a very, very aggressive social media campaign to show not only the capabilities, but also our knowledge base and how we're able to use these machines to create your product, create that confidence in the customer to say, hey, let's throw these guys a bone. Let's try them. So yeah, that's where PTL really stems from. It's a small business truly wanting to help other small businesses succeed. And that's the way we still look at it today. We are a small business. As big as we've gotten, as fast as we've gotten, our mentality is still laser focused in that area.
You're not to coin a pun.
No, go ahead. Oh yeah, I didn't even realize I said that. I've said these words so many times this week. It all just runs together.
Laser's a good word in our business. We like using that.
Yeah.
So you talked about yesterday, and you just mentioned it. You know, that first machine that you invested in was a 3D laser.
Yeah.
At the time, not a widely purchased or used item. But since then has become more and more. But why did you decide at the very get-go to invest in that particular machine for that particular market?
Well, at the time, my experience with the metal world, was mainly tubing based. And I really started to realize how difficult this is to do it.
Everybody take note of that.
Look, we still get a lot of comments about, I do it by hand, and I appreciate the craftsmanship, but from a business standpoint, it's just not smart because your competitors are using me, and if you want to be able to keep up, you need to be able to utilize technology. Don't be afraid of it. But a majority of what I processed at that time or was a part of was tubing material. So I'm watching these guys lug this material around, move it around, take it from the saw, deburr it, mills, drills, weld. Maybe it was a 1/4 inch too long, 1/2 inch too short. Now it's back over at the saw, and I'm watching the efficiencies and going, man, there's got to be a better way to do this. And at the time, we actually had an experience with another laser tube cutter at that particular time during that business. And it was a complete nightmare from start to finish. And that's where it really clicked for me of, you're a business that's set up to help companies like us. And you turn this into such an awful experience that I don't know how you make money if you're doing it that way. And to me, it seemed like they were making this simple process so difficult, not only for customers to achieve and get to them, but to get the results they wanted, and so that's again, just another driving force of why I decided to go this route.
Yeah. Would you consider yourself somebody who is quick to notice niches in the market that you can get into and use to your advantage?
Yeah, we're quick to notice. We don't necessarily act right away. There is a lot of strategy in the way that we navigate this market.
Sure.
Just perfect example. We'll never offer everything. I get emails every day about, do you do this service? Do you do that service? And as much as I'd like to say yes, I don't want to sacrifice our business morals and our quality because we have 10 things we're mediocre at versus 4 or 5 things we're really, really good at. Because we're not ever going to offer everything. So what's the point of continuing down that path? Now, at the same time, we're in a very unique position to drive our business in a direction that makes sense, which means if you come to me with a great idea and the workload makes sense, I have the ability to go get a piece of equipment that'll make that part very efficiently or dedicate it to your product. And I can do that. But at the same time, I always have to look at that piece of equipment and say, well, when this well dries up, which it will at some point. And that could just be that they got so big, so successful that they sold their company and they decided they didn't want to use me anymore. But I got to look at that piece of equipment and go, where can I use this piece of equipment down the road? So I can't just have a $1 million paperweight sitting there because that customer went away. It doesn't look good on my resume, okay? So
it doesn't look good on your balance sheet either.
Well, no, that one's hard to explain. You don't want to explain those mistakes.
Yeah. What are some of those core customer segments that you serve now?
Oh, we are all over the map because we've designed the business to be so user friendly. We have everything from your enthusiast that just found us on Instagram that's like, hey, I'm doing my own little project in my garage and I just need a couple of tubes or some flat parts or whatever, all the way up to space and space products and aerospace and everything in between. Yeah, we've been making space products for 4 years now, 4 out of the 5 years that we've been around. Awesome. So yeah, that started pretty early for us. And then everything in between, everything from aftermarket automotive, gym equipment, all the artsy stuff you see in the casinos and hotels and
your front office.
Yeah, our front office. Yeah,
Right.
we spent a lot of time there.
Yeah, that was like a recent thing. That was shared on Instagram.
Yeah. Well, there was a lot of pressure from the FMA to step up and deliver. So we said, you know what, we can't have this anymore.
We do what we can.
Some lemonade would have been fine. You didn't have to rebuild your front office.
No, this is it's so funny because we get caught up in just the mundane cut what the customer wants. And sometimes you lose that creativity, and that side, that passion of, I love to create, I love to push the limits and do things. I have the ability to create things that people have never seen before.
Right.
But to come up with those ideas is really, really difficult. And so when we have projects like this, you know, it gives us the opportunity to really pour our heart and soul into it and get the results that we want to get.
Well, I like shops that embrace, you know, all aspects of it. The business aspect of it, the problem-solving aspect of it, the customer satisfaction aspect, and actually just the craft itself.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And at the end of the day, you know, it reassures people when they come in. They go, wow, these are the right people for the job. Anybody who knows how to do some of the stuff that we're doing there and creating it from scratch really understands the craftsmanship and the technology and the embracing of the technology that goes into creating this stuff. And it gives them the reassurance, like they can handle what I got, you know?
Well, we talk about problem solving just now. I mean, talking with you yesterday, it seemed to be very key to what makes you successful is helping customers solve their problems on a just-in-time basis. I mean, we were talking about how sometimes people will say, hey, I need 10 of something, and then they'll come back and say, oh, you know what, I actually need half a dozen more. Can you fit that into your schedule? And you're very quick to try to accommodate that. And that's kind of part and parcel of your don't let the machines lie still very long, right? Find a way to keep today's deliverables going and maybe put off tomorrow or the next day's deliverables and fit those things in. I was wondering if you could just tell us a little bit more about the mindset of your shop in terms of how you space out your jobs and, you know, you're keeping the today's deliverables front and center and really being very purposeful in how you schedule things just to make sure everybody's getting what they need in that 3 to 5 day window that you're very proud of.
Yeah. So, you know, a majority of our business really is small batch, high volume, right? And that small batch, that's a variable number, right? It all just really depends. Like before, where I thought 200 parts was a small batch, now I'm looking at thousands of parts being a small batch. You know, it's not uncommon for us to turn 20 to 30,000 parts out of my shop every day.
Wow.
So that's where that range is very, very high for us. You know, what are we cutting? What are we making? And is it possible to turn it? One of the things that's been really important to us is lead time. You know, we've been able to maintain 3 to 5 day lead times throughout our entire history as a business. And that's really, really important to us. We know that people need parts. They need them fast. They need them done correctly. And they need the quality to be there. You can't sacrifice any of those things. And that was something that was big for us when we started this, was that we've got to do it differently, right? 6 weeks, 6 days, 10 days, 6 months, that stuff doesn't work anymore, right? People want it now. And we have the ability to buy and get the support through the equipment to produce. So why can't we deliver? Yeah. And so in our environment, we've created this very fluid environment of things are going to change throughout the day. Things are going to change throughout the week. You know, we may be working on a job that's, you know, 50,000 parts or 100,000 parts. We cut 750,000 parts for a customer from July to October this last year. But within that time, we create these little windows of time to get other customers through. So if we decided to take on that type of work and you called up and ordered parts and you needed parts, we don't say, well, listen, we took on a bigger job. If you can wait 6 weeks or 6 months, we can get your parts. We don't do that. You're still getting your parts turned within the 3 to 5 days. And in most cases, 24 to 48 hours based on if it's readily available material. So we knew that was important, and we knew that was a different style of service that we could offer. You know, and so that's everything from, you know, quoting, you know, to programming, you know, all the way out the door in that time frame. And it really makes for a dynamic work environment that's constantly changing and really keeps it fun for my team because they'll be running something and they know at some point somebody's going to walk up and say, hey, when you get to a stopping point, I need you to run these 3 jobs. Why? Because these 3 jobs can leave today. The job you're running right now isn't leaving till tomorrow. So we're fighting our shipping windows. That's what we're looking at as we start to close in on those. What can leave today? So you may have a job that, you know, has been on our floor for 2 days or 3 days, and we're working through it, and it's a lot of parts, but that job's not leaving yet, right? So instead of just beating our head against the wall, let's get some stuff out the door, create some create movement through our shop. And get to the point where, we can get back on these longer term jobs, which they've been quoted typically a different lead time anyway, if we're talking about hundreds of thousands of parts. And they know that. So yeah, that's something that I love, that environment. I like change. I like to challenge my team,
right?
And I like to keep it different than just the same. I told you my term is called part drunk, where you just see the same part every day and you're just like, I just want to see something else. Just put a hole in it or something,
Yeah, we get word drunk in our business. We just see the same words over and over and over.
But you know how it is, right? Your mind starts to wander. You're not as sharp. Right. You don't pay attention to detail as much, and things start to slip through the cracks.
Right.
And it's nice to be able to come up and be like, hey, take a break from that. Run this. That changes. This changes us today. This doesn't change anything, and then we can get back on it. And it's nice because it really allows our team to just kind of take a breath and just be like, oh, I get a break for a minute, right? Even though they're not,
right?
It mentally, their eyes, everything, their whole approach to the day just changes.
But with those lasers, you don't have to worry about change over time either. You're just kind of shifting and going.
Yeah, I mean, it's not uncommon. We change between our machines material types, diameter, sizes 30, 40 times a day.
Yeah.
I mean, it's constant, and again, because we're doing the small batch all the way up to the large production runs and everything in between.
And the laser doesn't go, oh, thicker material again. This is, I hate this.
give it some time.
At least I hope it doesn't. Yeah, at least I hope it doesn't.
This is dumb.
We have a lot of.
It starts to look at its phone.
Yeah, and look, I've got such a great team behind me. They get it. And for me, like I said in the beginning, it's the right attitude, the willingness to learn. You have to make this job a priority. I know it's not the most important thing in your world, but we keep a very, very tight core group of people. I don't have 50 people in my shop. At the highest, we were running 30, 32 people. We're down to like 24 right now. And it's important for me that the people that work there understand that you serve a purpose here. And your contribution to this company matters. I'm relying on it. The guy next to you is relying on it. And it allows us to really focus on building people up and controlling where they're at as far as, hey, I think you can ask for a little bit more here. I think you can give a little bit more and I'll give a little bit more. And so like I said, it's that environment that I always wanted to work in and always wanted to be a part of. And it's fun to control that basically, and just say, hey, we can have a good time. I mean, there's many days, this sounds crazy because you've seen my shop. We've got multi-millions of dollars of machine. It's super clean, all this type of stuff. Yeah. We're throwing footballs in there, we're having a good time. Like just breaking up the everyday mundane, like we can do this. We got music on. It's a vibe. It's, we're just cruising through our day, and we go on this little emotional roller coaster every day of, high stress jobs, low stress jobs, not a big deal. Now we got to really focus. And, it's nice to have a team that you can get with and be like, hey, this week, not going to be fun.
Yeah.
But if we can
no
work
footballs.
together, no footballs, no footballs, no fireworks, none of that stuff.
Put the donuts away.
It's one of those weeks where it's like, we just got to grind. But if we grind together, we can get it done, and then we're on our way out, and move on to the next thing. And for me, I think it's important, especially with young people, and people that don't come from this industry, you really have to lead by example. I am so involved in my business. I don't have a piece of equipment. I don't have software. I don't have anything in my shop that I don't operate, use on a daily basis. And I think that's important because it's not just somebody shouting from the mountaintop of get this done, hit this quota, do this.
Yeah.
I'm out there pushing brooms. I'm loading parts. I'm counting parts. I'm stacking parts. And sure, I'm an expensive piece of the labor, but what it does for the team, it shows them that, hey, I'm counting on you. You're counting on me. We all make an impact here. And I think that's something really important that gets lost as companies grow.
Yeah.
And obviously, there's a lot of people that say, well, you can't do that forever. Well, that's
what
true.
I was going to ask.
But you get to the point where, to me, having a company that has 200 people in it, that's not where I want to be.
Right.
I know where I want to be and where I feel comfortable. And that's not to say that I won't change my mind. But as far as how I've envisioned this business moving forward, that's not it. You know, I genuinely care about the people that work for me. And I want to see them succeed. And I just don't know that you can do that in an environment like that.
Yeah. So the best culture test of an organization in our industry is walking the shop floor with the people that either own or run it.
Yeah.
And if they know one person, 2 persons maybe,
Right.
Yeah, it's probably not the best sign. But they're like, you know, everybody, and I mean, like literally everybody heads up to the fork driver, and it's a good sign that while they may not know everything, they try to get out there and have those conversations.
Well, it's the old manage by walking around mantra, right?
Yeah.
You get a very good feel, like Dan said, about the culture of the company by watching the executives interact. And I've seen good and bad. One of the best I ever saw was at a shop in Northern Illinois that I toured last year. And the director of engineering was there figuring things out in real time with one of his guys. And he happens to be an old high school buddy of mine. So it was really gratifying to see Todd make a difference in real time, right there with his employee. He didn't consider himself better than his employee. In fact, he was a colleague. He was a brother in arms, right? You know, you're out there solving problems with your people right there. And what a great value they feel, right?
Yeah.
That makes them feel valuable, even if they couldn't articulate it at the time.
Yeah.
That you're out there working alongside them. So to put a finer point on it, and this is something I wanted to ask you, and I'm glad it came up, company culture. Like that it's quite obviously very important to you. Was that something that you thought about even before you bought the machine? Like, the culture of the company that I run needs to be XYZ.
Yeah. You know, we've all worked for bad employers, I guess.
Yes.
I mean, that's probably the nicest thing I can say.
One day, yes.
Yeah,
we had the conversation.
That's the nicest thing I could say right now. You know, that laying out the values of that company up front, you know, and really being clear. You know, I've chosen to complicate my life a little bit more with that because I've brought in people into my inner circle that I work with every day that, you know, family, friends, you know, their friends, you know, there's a lot of people that you've incorporated that just bring other aspects. You're more invested than we just work together. But being clear about where that line is and saying, listen, you know, when we cross this door, it's business. I'm focused on protecting our customers, protecting us, and making sure that you guys feel safe and secure in your business, you know, and what you're doing in your aspect and your role in this company. But it's business time right now, you know, and when we leave here, yeah, we can go to dinner, we can get drinks, we can have a good time. You know, don't be offended that you didn't like what I had to say about that. I'm not supposed to agree with everything. I'm not supposed to like everything. Just as you know, I trust you to make the right judgment calls. You know, I'm not a micromanager when it comes to running my business. I really give everybody the opportunity to step up, make decisions, figure out if it's something that I don't have direct involvement with on a daily basis. Why should I make the decision on it? At the end of the day, if I can't get the people together that are supposed to make that decision, then I'll step in and say, hey, this is what I think is the right thing to do. But as long as they're taking in, you know, the consideration of our customers, making sure that we're not changing our values as a business when we're making those decisions. We call it thinking locally and thinking globally, right? Are you thinking about how does this just affect me? Or how does this affect everybody? And that includes our customer. That includes our vendors. That includes our providers of equipment. If you've made a decision that only affects you, that's the wrong way to approach it. You know, and that's where we have to go back and relook at what decisions we're making here and say, hey, I don't think you thought this through. Right. Because now it affects me. I'm downstream from that, and that's a problem.
Big picture.
Yeah. And so once they understand that that's how we're navigating through our business, it makes it a lot easier for decisions to be made. And I don't have to be around for all of those. I can be out in the shop with my guys, with the equipment, with the parts, helping them navigate their day and helping them make decisions, again, if they can't make decisions. Because that's where, you know, we've really got to get production tight. You know, and going back to what we were talking about earlier about walking the shop floor, you know, I do not want my team to be intimidated by me whatsoever, and it's one of the reasons why I'm not afraid to do the bottom level jobs, because that's how we all become equals, and it's important, Of course there's a hierarchy, but it's not really acknowledged in our business. And I like that, because it's not always like, oh, boss is on the floor,
shape up.
It's none of that. It's like, just keep doing what you're doing. Like I said, it's a vibe in our place.
You're not managing by fear.
No,
you're managing by camaraderie and competence. I mean, they know what you're doing, and they know what they're doing.
Sure.
Because you help train them.
I wouldn't be sitting here with you guys if I didn't think that.
Right.
That's right.
There's a lot going on back there. Yeah.
How many screw-ups have they made?
How do you handle onboarding in your company?
With employment?
Yeah, like new people. It's one thing to know the technology. It's another thing to feel comfortable in the environment you're kind of describing.
Yeah. I've chosen to take a really, I don't know if it's a different approach, but when we reach out for opening up employment, which is weird because as a company, we've been around for 5 years now, and we've never not been hiring.
Yeah.
We've never said, hey, we're at capacity. I'll always take more people. But a lot of it for me is the willingness to try. I don't care what's on your resume.
Right.
That's not important to me, right? Everybody has a past, and I'm not going to check into your past. What I care about is how are we going to move forward, right? And is this something that you enjoy and you look for long-term employment? I'm not interested in short-term employment.
Right.
There's so much investment in the time and understanding and trust with these $1 million machines. You look at your phone for a text and you rip the cutting head off our machine, and next thing you know, you cost me 60 grand.
Yeah.
You don't realize how big of a decision that is to make that choice at that particular time.
Right.
It's not that, hey, you got to keep your phone in your pocket all the time. We don't live in that world.
Right.
But you got to pick your battles, and again, I think with the way that our structure is, when these people do come on board and they see that there's a hierarchy, but it's not recognized, that all the way from the top to the bottom, there are people here that are encouraging me, teaching me, training me. I can ask them any question. I don't feel stupid. They're not going to make me feel stupid because I don't know or should know, or it's the 10th time they've told me,
Right.
And at some point
it's like a marriage.
Yeah, for lack of a better term, yeah.
It's the relationship with people who you hire because they're teachable, because they're the right person. They don't know how to run a tube laser.
That's probably the easiest part about it.
Yeah.
My expectations are not up here for them, right? I'm not expecting you to show me something I haven't seen before. Maybe you have a different perspective as you get experience in this industry, and I love that. And I love for people to have a voice and say, hey, can we do it like this? And, in most cases, we've looked at that.
No.
And here's why. Again, it goes back to that locally and globally thinking. And once they wrap their head around that this is not the best, on paper, maybe it looks good, but in reality, it just doesn't work. But the onboarding process is tough. Just go back to your question. Because I don't have expectations other than, like I said, show up, good attitude, make this a priority. Don't make your problems my problems. But at the same time, if you need somebody to talk to, we're here. For lack of a better term, we are a family. I know that's so cliche in businesses, but in my case, we really are.
Yeah.
My mom works for me, my best friend works for me, my wife works for me, my sister works for me, my dad's my business partner. So that's why I say I've really, really complicated my life here by, adding all of these speed bumps in there, because there's a lot of personal things, that just, you say something the wrong way and they were, pissed off about something 2 weeks ago, and all of a sudden that resurfaces. It's like, all I told you was just to write the measurement down. Like, that was it. Like, I don't know why that's
nothing personal
turned into
here.
a fight over dinner. What are we talking? You know what I mean? So
no, I don't want pepperoni, but it's okay. We'll move on.
But what it really does for me, and what helps me is I'm in direct responsibility for their well-being. And I know where that lies. I know they're protected. I know they're safe. I know that they've got job security. I know they're going to get paid. You know what I mean? Like, all these things that before I had to worry about, I don't have to worry about, and they get to be a part of something really special.
Wow.
Yeah. It seems like a kind of a chill, like a career migration almost, where you're kind of coming in and you'll learn the technology, but at the same time, you'll kind of see this, but not be expected to kind of be thrown to the wolves.
Yeah, I don't think you can take that approach. You know, the hands-on training is the best training to get, and training with the actual equipment you're going to use. You know, when I started this business, I had no clue what I was doing.
You bring good perspective, right?
Yeah, I got very, very little training. And honestly, when I got involved in the metal industry, I couldn't tell you the difference between steel and stainless. I just knew that one looked shiny or looked different than the other. And I go, this magnet doesn't stick, you know? That was basically how my mind worked, you know? And then, but I wasn't afraid to ask the questions. I wasn't afraid to jump in and be like, well, what about this? Or educate me, or tell me, or teach me. When it came to the actual tube laser itself, I got about 3 days of training, and then I was thrown to the wolves. Yeah. And it took me months to really figure it out. And I want to accelerate the ability to learn. Right. And, you know, with that, get them involved, make sure they're comfortable, make sure they're confident, be there when they have problems. Right. Don't just let them struggle.
Because they're going to have problems.
Sure. And they're gonna have a lot of unknowns and a lot of really uncomfortable times of, what do I do now? And instead of standing there, right? You know, and the other thing too that I go through a lot, which people agree with, people don't agree with, I will allow mistakes to happen that do cost us financially, because I can only tell you so many times, don't do it this way. You're gonna get X result, right? And then they do, but now they've actually done it and they see it and they grasp it and they go, now I get it.
They see the mistake in front of them.
Correct.
But they're a lot less likely to make that mistake a second time if they're holding it in their hand.
When they have to take a whole table of parts and put them in the dumpster, that's a big deal. Yeah. Not only did they spend time cutting them, they spent time bending them, they spent time counting them. They did all these things that they were involved in. And then to see it go in the garbage is mind-blowing. Yeah. Ooh. You know? And of course we pick our battles on that, but for me, I need them to understand what was involved in that mistake. And at the end of the day, I'm glad we caught it here than when my customer got it, right? Mm-hmm. That can't happen, you know? And of course, we're not perfect. We don't knock it out of the ballpark every time, but the reality is we have the ability to catch stuff, but it also allows me to train them to have a keen eye, pay attention. You should be able to walk by parts we've made before and go, that's not right. I know it's not right because we've made it 10 times, you know? And so again, that's where it's important to help them with their voice and be able to raise their hand and go, I think we have a problem. Right. Even if we do or we don't, at least it allows somebody else to step in and make that decision and take the pressure off of them, you know, and say, listen, you don't have to make that decision. I'll make that decision, or I'll call the customer, or I'll find out if it's okay, or whatever the case may be. Oh, yeah. You know, and it just empowers them to say, I can step up. I don't have to hide mistakes, right? I can just say, you know what? I screwed up. I bent it backwards. It was upside down. Whatever it is, we all experience it, and we move on. Yeah, you know? That's
what I would do for you. I would bend it backwards.
Yeah. A lot of people do.
Lose a finger.
Well, there's that old story in one of the Malcolm Gladwell books about the jetliner that crashed in the mountain because the co-pilot was too afraid to speak up and say, "You're going to kill us." And
what airline was this?
Yeah, this was a foreign airline that I won't name on the air.
Someone's gonna need to validate this story right away. But I like where your head's at.
We're gonna take this off air.
No, this happened years ago, and that particular airline increased. Now they have no accidents because they learned from it. That particular airline, the culture in the cockpit was the captain is God. Yeah, and you don't question him. Yeah, and that's it leads to disaster. Sure. In that particular case, it truly did. But that mindset that you're talking about not, you know, making people unafraid to raise their hand and ask a question, point something out that they saw, and how much peace of mind does that give you, right? And how much more is your business profitable?
Sure.
It's great. You mentioned something yesterday that I wanted to make sure we got out in this conversation. It's about making your customers better. Mm-hmm. And how much how much reciprocal value that adds to your business. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so that goes back to the thought process of, cutting materials, not our only side of the business, educating, right? And helping customers, not only whether it's bringing a product to market or an idea to fruition, or they have a product they've been making for a long time and they want to make it better, or they want to make it more efficiently. And that's one of the barriers that we try to break down is the communication. You know, through our social media channels, we're really good at trying to answer as many questions as we can, be as interactive as we can, be involved. We don't get paid for that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, but it's important for us to instill in the customer that you can ask questions and we can work together. And maybe you don't know how to draw in three-dimensional space or a tubing profile or whatever. Call me and say, hey, this is what I'm going to make my product out of. What profile should I use? How should I draw it?
Is that the role of your sales staff to help with that?
That goes back mainly to like our programming side.
Okay.
We want them in direct contact with the people that are going to be dealing with their product. Because then they're hearing it from the horse's mouth, right? And we're able to look at something in real time and send screenshots or send back files and say, hey, if you were going to do X, Y, and Z, this is how I would approach it, or this is how I would do it. At the same time, have you thought about adding connections or slot and tabs or all these other features that we can do that are fractions of a dollar at the time in manufacturing, but really change, that customer's product for the better, And so we try to help them with their bottlenecks, whether that's in assembly or part identification. They have a left and a right and they get it mixed up from time to time. And now they got to cut the assembly apart, whatever it is. It could be super basic all the way up to, I have this really extravagant assembly and, we need to figure out how to build it from scratch. And how would you guys approach it? If you were going to build it, how would you do it? Because there's a lot of times where we already know the end result and we know that's not what they're looking for. And it's our obligation to step in and say, hey, I know what you're trying to do here, but I don't think you're going to get the result. And here's why. You don't understand the cutting process, the bending process, the three-dimensional cutting, and you're not going to love your product. So here's how I would approach it, or here's what I would do, or it's truly not manufacturable under these conditions. But here's the solution, right? It's not just, we can't make your product, sorry, go away. Let's have a conversation about it, right?
Right.
When you do something wrong or you have questions, you want somebody to jump in and help you. And it's a really tough environment to navigate because, I always use the example of if I handed you a piece of paper and I said, draw me X, Y, and Z, right? First thing you do is you cover it up and you go, I don't want somebody to see, or I'm a really bad artist or whatever. Right. It's not about that. It's about getting your idea out of your head onto paper so that now I have an idea what we're talking about.
Right.
Right. And that's a big part of our business. And we like the interaction. Mm-hmm. Over 95% of what we process in my facility ships out. Mm-hmm. I don't ever get to meet people face to face. We don't get to do this. We're very fortunate. We're in Las Vegas where everybody's looking for an excuse to go to Las Vegas. So we do get a lot more visitors now, but we've got thousands of customers that we deal with on a regular basis, and it's just impossible to meet them all. So to know that you can have that human interaction and pick up the phone, and it's not just over an email or misinterpreted like, oh, that was kind of nasty. And it was like, no, I just told the hole's not center. Is it supposed to be center? I don't know. You have to tell me, But yeah, that's a big part of our business and our structure. And like I said, we want people to feel comfortable reaching out to us.
I was going to say, you're talking about more networking opportunities. Take it this is your first time at the FMA annual meeting. What are some of your takeaways from this event?
Yeah, I actually wanted to bring that up in the beginning, and then we got off. But this is our first real interaction with the FMA, and from top to bottom, blown away by this organization.
That's awesome.
Glad you said that.
Yeah, it was cool. It's so cool. When we did our shop tour the other day, there were 65, 70 people there, which is a lot of people for our shop. Yeah. Like pretty overwhelming. And it was like watching kids in a candy store, and it was so cool to watch them respond and look and do. But one of the things that I did is I shut down production and I brought my whole team over. I wanted them to interact with this organization and know that they're a big part of it as well. It's not just, hey, we're running machines. And so we shut down operation for an hour and a half and had an open discussion, about what we do. There's a lot of misinterpretations of how we do what we do. And we're an anomaly in the industry. But everybody was so attentive, and it's so rare that you get around your peers.
Correct.
Right? We spend all day with our customers, coddling relationships and, talking with people. And it's so rare that we get to be with our peers and they get a chance to observe your business and say, hey, this is what I took away from it.
Yeah.
And it was pretty
Just to even
mind-blowing.
commiserate, like over similar experiences, maybe either with equipment or material.
Well, you guys are cutting 3/8 stainless. Oh, let me tell you about mine.
That's stuff.
Exactly.
I think watching those conversations, and this is the meat and potatoes type thing. And it's kind of fun.
It was just really, really cool. We came to the reception that night, and just the people that were seeking us out to tell us what they took away from it was
awesome,
massive.
Well, thanks for offering up your shop to do that, because as much, a lot of things you're sharing now. We had Adam Hickey from Hickey Metal Fab join us yesterday. 200-person company. A lot of the same things. You'd be really. It's really. I think that's the exciting thing about this. You talk about a secret sauce that makes a company special, and there's certain elements that are kind of commonalities. And that type of openness, asking questions when you're hiring somebody. What you want to do?
Yeah,
what do you think you'd like to do? It's a lot of it that creates that winning culture.
Yeah, we're transparent by fault. We don't know how to be any other way.
Yeah.
And I don't think that anybody benefits by holding back.
Right.
And to be able to have those conversations, whether they're easy conversations, hard conversations, hey, I don't think you're the right guy for this type of machine.
So what influences you to be that type of leader? I don't know.
I don't know.
You don't sound like a child of the boomer parents like me. I'm like too touchy-feely, uncomfortable.
Yeah, no, I grew up in a very, we come from Vegas. Vegas has deep roots of being very old school. Your handshake means everything.
Okay.
Your word is your bond, and I've just always taken that. And I don't know why it stuck with me, but it's what I've applied to my business. And I was fortunate enough to be around some very motivational people to me internally, whether they knew it or not.
Right.
Whether it was through sports, whether it was through other business ventures. And I just took a lot of that and applied it today. And I think it seems so foreign or so old school because so many companies have moved on to they're replaceable or, everybody's disposable and it really doesn't matter. There's a guy here today, gone tomorrow.
Right. Do everything by email or whatever.
Yeah, and just nobody wants that human interaction. And I thrive off of that human interaction. I love dialogue. I love talking. I love hearing what people have to say. Listen, I've said more words this week than I've said
we love it. We love people who are thoughtful about their business. In all seriousness.
Well, no, it's great for the industry. Great for you, great for us, great for the industry.
I share a tremendous amount of passion. And if that's what wears off on people and inspires them to make a change or do something, great. That's on them, to figure it out. But all I can do is present where I come from.
Yeah.
Well, it's great.
Do you feel like you're in the fraternity now, like a metal fabricator? Because just talking to you, you sound like one.
I can listen. I can make it. I can fake it.
I keep turning my head because we're going through your Instagram page and you're involved in some pretty. You don't want to make it sound like you're just cutting parts on a tube laser. You're doing some pretty sophisticated fabrications.
We do some incredible things, and I tell people all the time we are an extremely humble company.
Yeah.
We know where we lie in the industry, and I think that's part of our success. I always use the sandbox reference. We know the sandbox we play in, and there's other companies that are much bigger than me that play in their own sandbox. But if you leave your toys laying around, I'm getting them. And I can tell you what, once they're in my sandbox, they're not coming back. And that's been my mentality. So even though I'm very encouraging, very open, very honest about what we do, I'm a competitor, and I'm here to compete. But there's enough business out there for everyone. And it's nice to know that as companies move on to bigger and better things, and these customers are left behind, that there is a shop that cares about them. There is a shop that'll pick up the slack.
Yeah.
And, that's cool because maybe, just maybe through organizations like this, they go, you know what? This is not the type of work I want to take on, but I know the right shop for you. These are the guys,
Well, you're the kind of, and in all honesty, Jordan, you're the kind of shop we like to talk to because you're willing to give some of your information up for the public to peruse and say, oh, that would help me. That's a good way to do things. I think that would help me too. And I think it's a huge component of what makes people better is giving away, because then you learn. There's a reciprocity to it. And somebody comes to you and says, hey, oh, by the way, I took what you said to me and then I did this and let me tell you how that worked. and then you learn and you get better as well.
Honesty
right?
breeds honesty, right? And it's just everybody's got to break down that wall of what am I hiding? You know, what don't I want them to know? And look, we're in such a unique position, and I have this conversation with so many different companies, you know, that are inspired by what we do, and whether that's from a social media side or just how we run our business or the dynamic we have or whatever. It's not something that's easily duplicated, and it's one of the reasons why I'm not afraid to share it, because if you come in and you want to implement some of the things that I do, it's extremely hard for you to do that. It's extremely hard, regardless of how big your company is. If you came in tomorrow and said, hey, we're going to do this and we're going to push on social media and all this, you're stirring the pot. For us, we've been doing it since day one. Yeah. We don't know any other way than doing business the way we do, and we're constantly adapting to whether it's market changes, customer changes, new information, new technology, and we're constantly educating ourselves. We're not afraid to say we don't know and go, you know what, we're going to get into it. We're going to cut our teeth on this and we're going to make it work. You know, when people ask me why I got involved in this business, you know, because it's so crazy from what we came from to this, you know, I like when your back's against the wall. I like when your chips are all in, because you don't have any other choice but to sink or swim. And it's not in my nature to fail. Yeah. So for me to push forward and just keep going and stay the course, that's probably the biggest piece of advice I could give any business is create your values, stay that course. It's so easy to zig and zag and let distractions take you out of what your end goal is. Yeah. And just start driving you in a different direction. And in most cases, it's the death of your company, or you become so far removed from what you originally created that people look back and they go, man, they were really good. Yeah. You know, but what happened? You know, so it's an interesting world to navigate. The manufacturing world is a blast. We love it. Yeah. We're so passionate about it, but man, it's tough to navigate. There's no right or wrong way to do it. I can tell you that.
When they use the word chaos as like a positive modifier, that's a little bit of a strange thing.
There's a lot of words I hear that aren't my first word that I would choose. They're like, that looks fun. That's not the word I would use. But
so you're here in Vegas. Where can people go to see some of the kind of creative stuff your shop has produced?
So Instagram is our biggest source of information. Yeah. That's what we really drive. But we're across all platforms: Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. You can find us individually. You can find our company.
And that's probably like a separate episode. I think we come back for Fab
social
Tech.
Media.
We'd love to kind of focus on that. I think to me that's fascinating. But in Vegas itself, if somebody wanted to go someplace and actually see something you worked on, where might some of those installations be?
At the Cosmo, there's a bar there that we cut 13,000 tubes that
is that for that chandelier bar?
Yeah, well, it's not chandelier, it's Vesper bar. It's down by the elevators.
We have certain people in this room who are partaking.
There's a picture in it up there somewhere, but
if they're already familiar.
It's crazy.
The Cosmopolitan on North End?
What? No, the Cosmo on the Strip.
On the Strip, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's one of our. We did that a long time ago. Yeah, 13,000 tubes that hang from the ceiling. We cut those tubes in a single day for that project. Wow. And that was back when we were really, really struggling. You know, and we found a way to make it work.
The machine was busy.
Yeah, there's a lot of projects that we're involved in indirectly. You know, just depending on where we're at in the mix. You know, whether it's a company that reached out to us ahead of time and they're like, hey, this is what it's for, and we have to meet this deadline. Or we got a company that's going, hey, I was supposed to deliver this 3 weeks ago, and I haven't cut a single sheet of this yet. Oh wow! And now we need to get dug out. So there's a lot of projects around town that you're driving by and you're like, oh, I know that. Yeah. We do a lot of like interior panels for like P.F. Chang's restaurants and stuff like that. Okay. So like they've got all the half moons and the roofs and.
Well, now you've got a new machine coming in like presently. Yeah. That you're going to be able to make available for a lot of other customers.
Yeah, we made our largest purchase yet, which is the True Laser Center 7030.
Oh yeah,
Trump. Yeah.
We're in here actually quite a bit about that.
Yeah, it's. I'm somebody who's very realistic about the technology and what exists out there, and I'm very rarely blown away by a piece of equipment. And that comes from I have tube lasers. I get to cut cool stuff all the time, you know. And when I saw that piece of equipment, I was just blown away. I mean, Trump really looked at it and said, if we didn't have to spare expense. How could we solve some of the inefficiencies
Yeah.
of 2D processing and organizing and counting and stacking and palletizing? And what if we could do that in a magic box?
Right.
You know, and that's really how they've approached it. And so it's a pinnacle machine for them, but has had very little traction. Not a lot of people understand it because it's so complex. And really how we changed the industry to accepting laser tube cutters, they're hoping that we do the same with this piece of equipment, because it is really something special.
Yeah, and it's lack of tabbing. I mean, kind of answering that. It's truly kind of interesting what they've done. It's taken a while.
Yeah,
from what I've heard.
Yeah, so ours lands the 23rd of March. So you know it's crunch time now. You know, I made everybody stand on the pad that it goes on during the tour the other day, because it's the last time you're going to stand there. There's a big piece of equipment coming in.
If you stand there in the future, we're going to tell you get off.
Yeah. That's an expensive place to stand, but we're really excited about that. You know, it'll be for Trump. That's the farthest of that particular type of equipment west.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
So it's become a big deal for them. Awesome. You know, and there's less than 100 of these machines in the world right now. And that includes what's in production.
Yeah.
So it's very rare to come across one. And, you know, when I built this business, I built what really is a job shop of the future. It can be clean, can be sterile, can have a really nice equipment, high-end equipment, real high efficiency equipment, which is obviously important. And we're not afraid to make the investment in that. We understand the value of efficiency and what it does, not only for our company, but what it does for the morale of our people. It's like, hey, let the machine do the work. Just got to watch it or nurture it or help it, assist it, let it do the work. So yeah, it changes the dynamic quite a bit in the shop, you know, when you have that caliber of equipment. So.
Well, thanks a lot for visiting with us today. We appreciate it. And like I said, I'm sure we're going to catch another time and chat about, it's really kind of, it's such a visual industry we're in, and it makes total sense that you are able to kind of build it that way. Yeah. And I'm sure some others would kind of learn a little bit about that, but we'll pick up that conversation later.
Thanks for coming in.
Cool. Thank you guys. I really appreciate the opportunity.
So please go to where you get your podcast, rate and review. If you have a question for us, please send it to podcast@thefabricator.com.
You got it.
Yeah, I'm actually getting pretty good at that. So yeah, it's only taken 18 times. And we appreciate you tuning in. And until next time, be good. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
The Fabricator Podcast is a production of Fabricators and Manufacturers Association, located in Elgin, Illinois. The show is hosted by Dan Davis and the staff of FMA Communications. The podcast is produced by Gareth Slager and recorded and edited with the help of Brandon Geyer. Sales support provided by Andy Flando. Additional production support by Elizabeth Gavin, Dana Weicker, Mary Diamond, Mike Owens, and me, Sarah Spring. Thank you for listening.